1,000 credit to sales minus the contra accounts for returns and allowance minus the discount, which is the 59,900. We have now found a home for these three numbers on the income statement. I'm going to make those highlighted, and that was done with that. Next number. Now this is a very important expense. Notice it's usually a lot larger than the other types of expenses. If we sell a lot of inventory, we're going to break that one out all by itself. We're going to say cost of goods sold is the most important expense. It represents the inventory that we are selling. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that, and that's it's basically its own category right here. Cost of goods sold, very important. And we're going to put that right on the end. There's only one account in there. I don't need any subcategory or anything like that because cost of goods sold is cost of goods sold. And so we're going to say this equals its own spot of 37,440. Doesn't have to sit down there with all those other expenses because it's still has a VIP spot. So I'm going to highlight that. We found a home for that. And then we're going to calculate a new subcategory here, and we're going to call that gross profit. So before net income, we have some new terms than a service company. We had net sales, which not net income, that's net sales, and now we have gross profit. Why? Why do we have gross profit? Well, the relationship between the sales and the cost of goods sold is the most vital relationship for the most part. Why is it the most vital relationship? Because if we sell inventory, the markup, the gross profit between the sales price and the amount of the cost of the inventory is usually, to most people, the very valuable piece of information. Therefore, we need to break that out. This is going to be a subtraction problem. You might be asking, why didn't we put a less there to tell people that? And the answer is that most people, we're just assuming that people know that traditionally. We don't put a less in front of the cost of goods sold because it's, just tradition, I guess. I don't know why. And then we're going to point to the 59,900 minus the 37,442 and enter. All right, so there we have that. Now we've got the cost of goods sold. And if we highlight all this from here down to the cost of goods sold, we got the 22,458. We're looking good. We're still on track. And now we're going to break out the other expenses. We're going to call this another category, operating expense. I'm going to put a colon. I'm going to have two types of operating expenses, and the two types will be selling and administrative. I'm going to start off with selling expenses. I'm going to enter that, then I'm going to go back on it. We're going to go to the home tab. We're going to go to the alignment. We're going to increase the indentation. So we have operating expenses, colon. Then we've got selling expenses, colon. Then we're going to have this subcategory of the types of selling expenses here. Now, we didn't define the selling expenses very clearly on our trial balance. So I'm going to tell you what I want to break out in terms of selling versus administrative expenses. First, tell you why. Why are we going to break that out? Because if we have a sales department versus the administrative department, we may want to break those two things out. We don't have to, but it may be helpful for the reader to see, okay, how much are they spending in terms of the sales department versus how much for the admin, people like the accountants and whatnot. So I'm going to say that the two accounts on the selling are going to be the equipment and the insurance for this month. So those two happen to be selling expenses. Again, I didn't really make that clear in terms of the types of accounts here or in the instructions. So if you put those in different areas, that's okay. But just look at the concept of this is that we want to basically break those out if we're doing a multi-step income statement. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put that in cell J30, right click, paste them 1, 2, 3. I'm going to indent those a couple times. We're going to go to the home tab, alignment, and we're going to indent 1, 2. We're going to pull that into the inside here once again. This doesn't mean debits and credits. We're just going to pull that to the inside. So we'll say this equals, and I'm going to point to the depreciation of 450 and enter, and then equals and point to the insurance of 2,300 and enter. All right, and then I'm going to highlight these two. So I got the ones like in the middle there. I'm going to highlight those and say we found a home for those. We may want to put some underlines in here as we go. I haven't been putting a lot of underlines, so we could go over here and say there's a subcategory of the 500 and 600, and we can underline there. We could say the 61 and the 1001. We could underline in here, came up with this number, and we're saying we could put an underline here as well if we so choose to show those types of calculations. And then we're going to go over here, and we got these two. I'm going to underline in that, and that will give us the total selling expenses. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put it down here, right click, paste it 1, 2, 3, double click in the cell. I'm going to put total. I'm going to make this a lowercase number. I'm going to get rid of the colon, enter, and then I'm going to indent this way out there. I'm going to go to the home alignment 1, 2, 3, put them way outside. Then I'm going to sum that up in the middle column. So now I'm in the middle column. I'm not all the way to the total outer column, because what's going to go in the outer column? Total operating expenses. So I'm in the middle column, equals SUM. I'm going to highlight these two numbers and enter. All right, next section, it's going to be administrative expenses. So I'm going to type in the administrative. So we have this here. I'm going to go ahead and indent that. So I'm going to go to the home tab, alignment, indent, one time. Note that once again, we have the operating. This is still a subsection of the operating here. And then we're going to add some accounts that are going to be down here that will be part of the admin. It's like part of the central office, oftentimes the accounting department included in that location. So I'm going to put the, say that the salaries is there. So I'm going to say salaries is part of that. And we're going to say the office supplies and utilities. I'm going to copy that. And paste it 1, 2, 3 down here. All right, then we're going to increase the indentation. I'm going to highlight all three of those. And we're going to go to the home tab, alignment, increase indentation here. And there we have that. Then we can put the numbers in here. I'm going to go over here, just make sure we pick up the right numbers, because obviously we are a little bit out of order on them. But it's nice that we made them green so we can see that clearly. So we're on the salaries expense, equals, we're going to point to that 13.6 and enter. So now we are on the office supplies, equals, we're going to point to that 750 and enter. We're on the utilities and phone, equals, the 972 and enter. So now we should have found a home for all of these. I'm going to highlight, green that out, found a home for those. We're going to sum this up to the outside. In order to do that, I'm going to right click here, copy this, paste it down here, right click, paste it 1, 2, 3, values only. Then we're going to double click in that cell. I'm going to go to the front of it and call it total. And then make that a lowercase and get rid of the colon. I'm going to go off the cell, back on the cell so that I can see these increase indents. And then I'm going to increase the indent till it looks like that. So we have this nice line. And then that will be summed up in the outer column in a similar fashion as the administrative expense, which we could put a total up here too. I'm going to double click on that and put total. Like so. They would have caught that in the review process. So, all right, then I'm going to sum this up. We're going to say equals the SUM and sum these up over here and enter. Okay. So after all that, now we've accounted for all the expenses. We're going to put the expenses, the total expenses, on the outer column now. So we'll type in total operating expenses. I'm going to hit enter. So now notice we have operating expenses, these two, and then the total operating expenses. And you might be saying, well, I should indent that like 6 times, but we don't usually indent that one out as you might think we should, but that's just how it works. And we're going to go to the end of this now. And once again, we're not going to move from cell to cell. We're only going to do things, or from column to column. We're generally only going to do things in one column. So the total operating expenses isn't going to jump from here to here, back to here. We're only going to be in this column, and we're going to sum up the two types of operating expenses, these two numbers. So I'm going to put our cursor here and say equals SUM and highlight these two numbers. And it's okay, we got a lot of blank cells, that's okay. And then enter. And we could put an underline over here if we so choose. We go to the home tab and we go to the font and underline. And then we come out to 1872. So here's the moment of truth, if we can see if that is what is these add up to. So I'm going to highlight the, I'm sorry, not the sales and discount, only the expenses down here, salaries expense down to the utilities and phone adds up to 1872. So we found a home for these numbers. Looks like that is adding up correctly. So the last number on the income statement will finally be net income. And so we're going to put that on the bottom down here. Once again, we're not going to jump around from cell to cell. We're going to stay in this outer cell, this outer row. And note that we have more than one number. We're not going to sum up the entire thing. These two have already been used to come up with this number. So we could have made 4 columns, but we don't want to get carried away with the columns. So we're just going to do something with these two numbers, and we're going to take that gross profit, which is the sales less the cost of goods sold minus all the other expenses, which in this case is that 1872. So we're going to say this equals this number, the gross profit